No one really prepares you for your 30s. People warn you about your teenage years. They talk endlessly about your 20s, the excitement, the freedom, the mistakes, the finding yourself phase. But the 30s, they're quiet. They arrive without ceremony. One day you wake up, and it's like something inside you shifts. You're not old, but you're not young in the same way either. You start to feel time differently. You realize that energy, opportunity, and relationships aren't infinite resources. They're investments. Your 30s are when life starts to get real. It's when the things you used to tolerate, the drama, the uncertainty, the endless social noise, suddenly feel heavy. You start craving peace more than excitement. You start valuing depth over popularity. And the wildest part? You can't exactly explain why. You just feel it, a quiet internal pull towards something more grounded, something more meaningful. But here's the part nobody tells you. Your 30s can also be incredibly lonely. Not because you're alone, but because your awareness expands faster than your surroundings. You start seeing things differently. The habits, the relationships, the jobs, the coping mechanisms that once made sense, they start to lose their shine. And while that's growth, it's also loss. You start to outgrow versions of yourself that once felt like home, and that can hurt in ways you never expect. In your 20s, you chase everything: love, success, identity, validation. You want to experience it all. You say yes to every opportunity because you're afraid of missing out. But in your 30s, the question changes. It's no longer, what can I get? It becomes, what do I actually want to keep? And that shift is brutal, because when you start filtering your life through that question, you realize how much of it was never really yours. You look at friendships that once defined you, and suddenly they don't fit anymore. The conversations that used to feel fun now feel shallow. The parties that once felt thrilling now feel draining. You begin to realize that peace has replaced excitement as the new currency of happiness. But learning how to choose peace after years of chaos is its own kind of education. The thing about your 30s is that they're humbling. You start seeing how much time you wasted worrying about things that never mattered. You start realizing that you were so busy trying to build a life that looked successful that you forgot to make one that actually felt good. You begin to recognize that some of the things you thought were milestones, the job title, the car, the social status, are just illusions of security. And the more you wake up to that, the more your priorities shift. You also start to understand your parents in a way you never did before. You begin to see the people behind the roles, the flaws, the sacrifices, the quiet fears they carried. You realize that maybe they didn't have it all figured out either. Maybe they were just trying to survive, just like you. That realization softens you. It makes you forgive differently. Not because they were right, but because you finally see how human they were. Your 30s also teach you that healing isn't a straight line. It's not about becoming perfect or never getting triggered again. It's about learning how to recover faster, how to recognize your patterns sooner, how to choose differently even when it's hard. You start to see that the things you thought were you, the anger, the anxiety, the overthinking, were actually just survival strategies. You learn to thank them for protecting you and then slowly let them go. One of the hardest parts of your 30s is realizing that growth costs you people. The friends who thrived on gossip, the relationships built on trauma bonding, the coworkers who only liked you when you stayed small, they start to fall away. And you have to let them. You can't take everyone with you to your next chapter, but that loss doesn't mean failure. It means evolution. You're not supposed to fit in everywhere anymore. You're supposed to fit into yourself. And then there's the quiet panic that hits you in waves, the voice that says, you should be further along by now. It's a voice that compares your journey to everyone else's highlight reel. You see people getting married, having kids, buying houses, starting companies, and part of you wonders if you missed your turn. But what no one tells you is that everyone in their 30s feels that way. Every single person is silently questioning if they're doing it right. Some are building families, others are building businesses, and others are just trying to stay afloat. Everyone's scared, just in different ways. The irony is that your 30s are the decade when you finally start to understand yourself. But it is also the decade when the world expects you to have everything figured out. That pressure is suffocating. But the truth is, no one really has it all together. The people who look like they do are just better at hiding the chaos. And maybe that's one of the biggest lessons your 30s teach you, that the appearance of stability isn't the same as peace. You start craving authenticity over achievement. You want real conversations, not small talk. You want relationships that feel safe, not ones that just look perfect online. You want to be around people who make you feel alive, not exhausted. That's why your circle gets smaller but deeper. The ones who remain, those are your people. And it's not just emotional shifts. Your body starts talking to you too. The late nights hit harder. The hangovers last longer. The energy you once took for granted becomes something you have to protect. You start realizing that your physical health isn't separate from your mental health. You start sleeping more, drinking more water, caring about what you eat. Not because you're obsessed, but because you finally respect your body enough to listen. In your 30s, the definition of success changes. Success stops being about more. It becomes about enough. You begin to realize that you don't need to have everything, you just need to have what matters. Peace, purpose, good health, people who love you, a sense of direction. And when you have that, you start to glow differently. It's not a loud, flashy glow, it's quiet. It's the calm confidence of someone who knows who they are and no longer needs to prove it. But to get there, you go through what I call the in-between phase. The place where you're not who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. It's uncomfortable. You doubt everything. You question your career, your relationships, your identity. Some days you feel inspired, other days you feel lost. But that in-between, that's the sacred space where transformation happens. It's in that space that you learn how to rebuild. You start discovering new parts of yourself that you never had time to explore in your 20s. You find hobbies not because they're productive, but because they make you feel alive. You rediscover curiosity. You start to feel joy in small things again. The smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of rain, the silence after a long day. You realize that maybe happiness was never missing. You were just too distracted to notice it. There's also something else, forgiveness. In your 30s, forgiveness takes on a different weight. You stop forgiving because it's the right thing to do. You forgive because holding on to resentment costs too much energy. You begin to see that peace is more valuable than being right. You stop needing closure from others and start giving it to yourself. You stop needing apologies from people who will never understand, and you let go anyway. That's how emotional freedom begins, not with resolution, but with release. And the more you let go, the more space you make for what's meant for you. The relationships that grow with you, not just around you. The work that nourishes you, not just pays you. The inner stillness that replaces the old noise. That's what your 30s quietly teach you, that your life doesn't have to be perfect to be peaceful. Your 30s are where you learn that maturity isn't about how much you know. It's about how you handle not knowing. It's realizing that uncertainty isn't the enemy, it's the path. You stop chasing control and start cultivating trust. You begin to understand that maybe the point of life isn't to figure it all out, but to stay curious enough to keep learning. And maybe that's the secret nobody tells you about your 30s, that they're not about arriving, they're about awakening. It's the decade where you stop trying to become someone and start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's quieter, deeper, lonelier at times, but infinitely more real.